3, 2, 1.
1/5 of Americans and a full third of adults under 30 describe themselves as spiritual, but not religious, which is to say they don't care very much about God, but they find themselves very, very interesting. We will discuss this postmodern theology with Tyler Blanski, author of the excellent book, An Immovable Feast, How I Gave Up Spirituality for a Life of Religious Abundance. Then, in a bunch of news stories that the mainstream media are doing their best to hide, President Trump and Secretary of State Pompeo secure the release of 3 American hostages from North Korea. Our National Guard is actually protecting our national border. What a concept. And last night's GOP Senate primaries show good signs for Republicans in November. I'm Michael Knowles, and this is The Michael Knowles Show. It just won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. More incredible news. One day after Donald Trump burnt down Barack Obama's entire legacy, he has now gone over to that legacy's grave and relieved himself on the ashes. Well done, Mr. President. So we recall Otto Warmbier, this poor American student who was taken hostage by the North Korean regime during the Obama administration. The Obama administration couldn't get him out. President Trump, we know now, has secured the release of 3 American hostages who had been held in North Korea. Do you remember when Donald Trump, he would send those angry tweets to North Korea? He called Little Rocket Man short and fat, because Little Rocket Man, Kim Jong-un, said that Donald Trump is old and crazy. And an American president would have responded, say, well, that's not very nice. Don't do that. Normal, Barack Obama, no. And what does Donald Trump say? He says, how dare he? I would never call him short and fat. He's got a button on his desk. I got a bigger button, and my button works. The whole mainstream media freaks out. They say he's going to plunge us into World War III. We're going to have a nuclear holocaust. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know. Oh, he just secured the release of 3 American hostages. Oh, Kim Jong-un is now doing what we tell him to do. This is a major diplomatic feat. Let's tune into the mainstream media to see all of their coverage of this incredible diplomatic feat.
But if the president insists on keeping a stormy silence, he's got to hope that 60 minutes doesn't become 60 days.
More details from Stormy Daniels.
Jeannie Mo, CNN.
We still stay a little on the stormy side down to
New York.
Good evening tonight. Breaking news in the Stormy Daniels story. We'll bring you the latest legal development. We'll also show you my full 60 minutes conversation with Daniels tonight, along with portions not shown on last night's broadcast. Her attorney joins us as well. So does Michael Cohen's lawyer to discuss new legal developments late today.
I actually wanted to see the clip. So I want to see the clip of North Korea coverage, because we've seen, we've gotten a lot of Stormy Daniels coverage. So let's just see the mainstream media reporting on this great North Korean diplomatic feat.
Porn star Stormy Daniels sues the president's lawyer for defamation, accusing Michael Cohen of calling her a liar. As Daniels goes public about her alleged affair with Donald Trump and says she was threatened, the White House says the president still denies an affair and rejects her claims. I'm Wolf Blitzer. You're in the Situation Room.
This is CNN Breaking News.
That's not the breaking news. I want the breaking news is that Donald Trump secured the release of 3 hostages from North Korea. Just show me that coverage.
Michael Cohen's first statement about the Stormy Daniels payment was on February 13th.
No more mainstream media. Turn it off. I don't want any more of this stupid mainstream media. By the way, those clips could have been taken from any moment in the last 5 months. Those just any day. Breaking news. That porn star is still talking. That porn star who wanted to run for Senate as a Democrat 5 years ago or however long ago, she's still talking about, and she doesn't like Trump. And breaking news. So anyway, on the actual story where Donald Trump secured the release of 3 American hostages in North Korea, the New York Times, this is really the failing New York Times. This is the epitome of the failing New York Times. As Mike Pompeo, as the Secretary of State, is in North Korea, personally securing the release of American hostages there, the New York Times runs a headline, "At key moment, Trump's top diplomat is again thousands of miles away." And they're saying at the key moment because the Iran deal was ripped up yesterday, but they had already done that. That was already a fait accompli. So Mike Pompeo was busy securing the release of Americans who were being held hostage in North Korea. The New York Times runs, where is he? What's he doing? He's probably on a beach somewhere in Boca, you know. But what's really weird about this, you can't even chalk it up to just total ignorance on the New York Times' part, as you frequently can, because the caption on a photo in that article said that Pompeo was busy in North Korea trying to deal with the hostages. So was it just, did the headline writer just not read the article? Did you just not see the photo? It's certainly incompetence. It's certainly ignorance. It's certainly terrible journalism. But that's the New York Times. This, by the way, is the argument for Twitter. I don't know how this is still the case, but some of the sophisticate conservatives and Republicans, they say, well, yeah, Trump is doing good. I like Trump, but we need to take away his Twitter. His Twitter is ruining him. Twitter is the whole thing. Twitter is the whole presidency. Without Twitter, none of this happens. Without Twitter, that's what we get. Without Twitter, it's just the Stormy Daniels presidency. You wouldn't even hear about the North Korean hostages. You just, no, it's just Stormy. We've only had Mike Avenatti, the Stormy Daniels lawyer, on 15 times today. We still have a couple hours left in the day. That's what we would get. So let's hear it from Donald Trump himself.
Call it a confidence-building measure, a goodwill gesture. You could describe a number of different labels to it, but the bottom line is 3 Americans who have been detained for some time in North Korea are on their way home right now, and the president very happy about it, tweeting just a few minutes ago, quote, I am pleased to inform you that Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is in the air and on his way back from North Korea with the 3 wonderful gentlemen that everyone is looking so forward to meeting. They seem to be in good health. Also, good meeting with Kim Jong-un. Date and place of the summit with President Trump set. The president also suggesting he's going to be up late tonight. Secretary Pompeo and his guests will be landing at Andrews Air Force Base at 2 a.m. in the morning. The president tweeted, I will be there to greet them. Very exciting.
It's why I love these tweets, because you get the words from Trump himself. He tweets it out, but then his tweets become the news. That the fact of his tweeting is the news. And as Fox News just said, that is the bottom line. The bottom line is that Donald Trump secured this release, that Mike Pompeo secured this release, that the Republican administration secured the release of hostages, which the Obama administration was not able to do. That's the bottom line, and that's a really good thing. It cuts through all the Stormy, whatever other nonsense they're talking about. And look at how Donald Trump is handling this. That tweet, you saw it right there. He's positive. It's engaging. It's positive. It's grateful, and it's a TV show. It keeps, stay tuned for what's going to happen. We've got this character going over here. This is happening. And he says, I'm going to meet them. They're getting in at 2 a.m. I'm going to meet them there. This is an important aspect of this whole announcement. Meeting them at 2 a.m. is a signal from Donald Trump to Kim Jong-un, to the international community. It's as much for them as it is to score points on domestic politics. Because what he's saying is, I'm a vigorous guy. I'm paying attention. I am personally involved in what's going on. I don't need sleep. I've got a button on my desk that actually works. What he's saying, this is like when Reagan met Gorbachev for the first time. He's an older man. Gorbachev was supposed to be this young, vigorous leader, and it was winter it was still chilly in Washington, D.C. So Reagan was going to wear his big overcoat, and at the last minute, either his advisors or he decided to take off the overcoat, and he trotted down those stairs, not wearing a coat, just wearing his suit jacket and light little suit jacket, and Gorbachev was all buttoned up and he's plodding slowly. It was this great display of vigor, and Gorbachev actually brought this up to Reagan. He said, next time tell me if we're wearing the coats or we're not wearing the coats, because it was a total PR win for Reagan. And you see the same thing happening with Trump. Trump is doing this. Trump is not a young man. Trump is one of our older presidents, but he's saying, I'm going to stay up late, I'm going to be tweeting, I'm going to be vigorous and informed. It was really, really good. He also announced that this possible summit with Kim, will not take place in the demilitarized zone, in the DMZ. We don't know where. He said he'll announce it within 3 days. There's the reality TV. Stay tuned, don't miss the next episode. Very optimistic, but he keeps saying everything could be scuttled. So keep playing nice, Kim, because if Kim doesn't play nice, they'll cancel the whole meeting, and there it goes. Now, forget the tweets. Here is a clip of Donald Trump on video describing this feat himself.
Deserve the Nobel Prize, do you think?
Everyone thinks so, but I would never say it. You know what I want to do? I want to get it finished. The prize I want is victory for the world, not for even here. I want victory for the world, because that's what we're talking about. So that's the only prize I want.
I think he's being serious here. We'll get to why this is so important, what this shows us about politics. But before we do that, I got to thank a wonderful sponsor, Lending Club. Love Lending Club. We all need a helping hand sometimes, whether it is unexpected repairs or medical expenses or credit card debt. Sometimes a little bit of money can make a big difference. You can get it at lendingclub.com. I've had this at some points in my life. When I was much younger, through a series of unfortunate events, I inherited my house. And the thing that any homeowner knows is that houses are money pits, especially if they're older houses or whatever. And at the time, didn't have a lot of cash, and houses, you just need repairs all the time. The roof leaks, this leaks, that. And sometimes you just need a little money to get you by in a pinch. Lending Club gives you access to low rates on loans of up to $40,000 for almost any purpose. You can take control of your debt, you can finance a major purchase, you can finally make home improvements. Just go to lendingclub.com, enter how much money you need, and see if you're approved in minutes. Pick the offer that's right for you. The money can be in your account in just a matter of days. It's that simple. For more than 10 years, Lending Club has helped millions of people with over $31 billion with a B, dollars in loans. Take charge of your finances today with Lending Club. Go to lendingclub.com/Knowles, Knowles, to check your rate for free. This won't impact your credit score. It's really easy. It's the way to do it. Do not you don't have to go to a bank. You do not have to use high interest credit cards. It's really simple. Lendingclub.com/Knowles, Knowles. Lendingclub.com/Knowles. All loans made by WebBank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. You'd be foolish not to do it. Go check it out today. So Donald Trump, he says, the reporter asks him, are you going to get a Nobel Prize? Should you get a Nobel Prize? He says, people keep saying that. I wouldn't say it. Everybody's talking about it. But when he says, what I care about is that it gets done. I want victory for the world. I don't care about the prize. I care about the victory. I think he's being serious. I don't think that's false modesty. With other politicians, it would be false modesty. With Barack Obama, it would be false modesty. With him, I actually don't think he cares. What we know from Donald Trump is he doesn't really seem to care about accolades from other people. Now, that's not to say he doesn't care about accolades. He loves accolades. He slaps his name on everything that he's ever been a part of. But he does it himself. He doesn't beg and say, oh, please, you give me this, or you do this, or can you? It's always him putting his own name in lights. He's already won the biggest prize in the world. He's the President of the United States. Nobel Peace Prize does not matter after that. But what he wants is to accomplish the thing. He wants to do the thing. This is a major difference between the right and the left. The right likes the thing itself, securing a denuclearized North Korea at the biggest end of it, or at least bringing an end to the Korean War, bringing American hostages back home. They like the thing itself. What the left likes is the appearance of the thing. They just like the appearance, just the glitz and the glamour, but not the substance, the husk, not the real thing. So Barack Obama was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. He won the Nobel Peace Prize. He won the Nobel Peace Prize something like 8.5 months after entering office. He was nominated, I think 12 days after entering office, very quickly. But what did he do to deserve it? Absolutely nothing. He certainly doesn't deserve it. Even the left admits that now. Donald Trump wants the real thing. That is what the right should focus on, the real thing. Forget all the mainstream media articles and the polls and the this and the awards and how nice and the dinners. No. Just do the real thing. Get the real thing. It's much more gratifying. Speaking of the real versus the superficial, let's talk about being spiritual but not religious. This is one of my favorite. You hear that everyone says it now today. Well, I'm spiritual, but not religious. I'm joined now by Tyler Blanski. Tyler is an author, musician, and record producer. He is the author of When Donkeys Talk, a quest to rediscover the mystery and wonder of Christianity, and most recently is the author of an excellent book that I highly recommend, An Immovable Feast, How I Gave Up Spirituality for a Life of Religious Abundance. Tyler, thank you for being here.
Hey, Michael, it's so wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Tyler, is this just a Catholic thing? You look like you're in Matt Walsh's set. You're broadcasting from your car. Are all Catholics required to broadcast from cars or broom closets like I am?
You know, I hope not. I was actually going to go use the public library. I'm on the road today, and I got all set up, and kind of like most government programs, it didn't work. The Wi-Fi was cheap. I couldn't get cell phone reception, so I came running out here to my car. Thanks for your patience.
I'm shocked. Not at all. Not at all. That if we knew you were using government facilities, we would have given you even a bigger buffer of time to go use the private stuff instead. So Tyler,
I know.
you're a major heretic. You are a huge heretic, and I'm not talking about religiously. Religiously, you're quite orthodox. But I live in Los Angeles. And out here, you would be a total heretic, man, because it's all about spirituality, man. None of those bad religious feels, It's just about spirituality. To begin, before we get into it, I really, really enjoyed your book, and I think everyone should go read it. What does it mean to be spiritual but not religious?
Great question. I think my experience of, even with myself, of identifying as being spiritual but not religious, was that I wanted authentic relationship with God. And for a lot of folks, that means just with the divinity or the good or the force that might be with you or not.
The universe. You hear that a lot out here. Universe. They say the universe, even though that is truly heresy, because that is a creation rather than the creator. But I think they're getting at the same thing: the energy, the divinity, the God, spirit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, of course, as a Christian, being spiritual but not religious, I always thought that for me meant being authentic, a truly deep personal relationship with God that didn't involve any obligations or rules or morals that might impose themselves on me and direct my life, right? So for me, being spiritual but not religious was about this personal relationship that allowed me a wide breadth of beliefs and practices, even if they contradicted each other.
I totally understand that. Having been raised a Catholic, although I went away from that for a long time, I did always enjoy St. Augustine's entreaty to "Lord, make me chaste, but not yet," which is a version of that.
Yes.
And as a kid, as you write in the book, you spurned the ritual, religious ritual. It was all about faith, not works. That dichotomy that we hear so much in popular religion. You were a thoroughgoing antinomian, it seems. Jesus saves, your free will has nothing whatsoever to do with it. And when I look around, though, at this idea of the performance of ritual, it seems to me spirituality is at least as performed or enacted as religion, and usually more so. So what is it that convinced you that this popular theology was wrong?
You know what I found out just through trial and error? It's kind of funny when an Immovable Feast finally arrived, bound and looking beautiful, I was like, "Oh, Brittany," to my wife. I was like, "Are you going to read it?" And she was like, "Oh, no, I'm not going to read it." And she's like, "Are you?" And I was like, "No way." Because I kind of like the pigs out. I kind of tell too many stories. And they're really like through trial and error, through a lot of hard-won lessons, I learned that spirituality, being spiritual but not religious, almost always ends in disappointment, if not loneliness. I think it was Abraham Lincoln who said that if we won't obey the 10 commandments, we'll obey the 10,000. Oh, I'm so sorry.
I think it's the devil who's just upset that you're spreading so much true religion here.
Here, can you see me?
I can't. I just see pure white. I feel like I have been sent into the light.
There
we go. Now I've got you again.
Sorry. I think it was Abraham Lincoln who said that if we won't obey the 10 commandments, we'll obey the 10,000 commandments, right? Where if we don't have the real thing, we'll end up making 10,000 replicas. And being spiritual but not religious, I totally did that. I'd be very religious about things that weren't religious, whether it was my diet, eating organic eggs, or drinking wheatgrass, or yoga, or just kind of being dogmatic about being spiritual but not religious.
Right. That's such a good point. You write, one of my favorite sentences in the book is, the Catholics are content with a single pope, and that he is only infallible when he speaks ex cathedra. But I gladly accepted popes by the dozen, and they were infallible when they stood in the pulpit or in their Birkenstock sandals. So you get this sense, and from the quote that you say too, that everybody's got to serve somebody, that if you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. Is there any way, as you see it, to escape the strict boundaries imposed by some religion?
I think it's deep in our nature, just as human beings, as men and women, to end up becoming religious. We need to live a life that has patterns, that has structures that make sense to us. And all of us are telling stories to make sense of the world. We can't help it, right? We think in story. Whatever story you're telling yourself, whatever patterns and rituals you're creating around your daily rhythms and your relationships, that is your religion. Whether you admit it or not, you are you are choosing to conform to something that is hopefully bigger than yourself to some degree, whether it's politics or some kind of environmental issue or social justice issue. We tend to get religious. We can't help it. The question is, are you being religious in a good way, and are you being religious about what's actually true and good and beautiful?
And it's the culture. It's in the culture. As you quote Russell Kirk making an observation that we talk about on this show all the time, that there's no culture without the cult. Cult and culture come from the same word. And the spiritual but not religious types, they spurn cults and religious organization. Does this explain why the spiritual but not religious types are usually such cultural Philistines? That they have a sort of narrow culture?
I think so. I have very good memories of being in college, but also memories that I've been able to reflect on of where, with so many of us, so many of us were Christians. We had so much in common, or should have. We should have been able to worship together on Sunday morning, but we couldn't because we disagreed. We were Christians without a culture. And yet every Friday night we could party together. And it's because we all spoke the same entertainment, Billboard Top 100, Hollywood newspeak, right? That was the common denominator. That was the cult that actually tied us together. And that, to me, is tragic. I wish that there was a way we could, and I'm working towards this, right? With the book and Immovable Feast, how can we recover a sense of culture that's truly rooted in a cult that makes sense, that's rich and beautiful and true?
That's such a good point. What is your cult? What are the things that bind you to other people? What is the common language? If most of us are being honest, it's the popular culture. It is whenever you get three Christians in a room of perhaps some different denominations or sects or whatever, they'll disagree about everything, but we can all agree on going out and getting a drink or something like that. That's a really good point. And the Catholics especially can agree on going out and getting a drink. Now, you have been a Protestant, evangelical, fundamentalist, it seems, just from perusing the book, Catholic now. I find that when I have a lot of friends who are Protestants and they're still Protestants, but they say they're not Protestants or evangelical or whatever. I find all of the non-Catholics or non-Eastern Orthodox, and in some cases the Anglicans fall into that Anglo-Catholic sphere too, but all of the fundamentalist types are frequently quite hostile to the saints and to the Virgin Mary. They're not simply indifferent to them, they're outwardly hostile. They say, why would you ever pray to a saint, or why would you ever venerate the Virgin Mary? Why is that? Where does that hostility come from?
Well, having once been quite hostile myself, I think it comes from a frustration that people keep bringing into what should be a private relationship between you and Jesus, an actual community, a community that seems to almost threaten the purity of being spiritual but not religious. So, for example, a big epiphany for me in just discovering, the Blessed Virgin Mary and the communion of saints was realizing, when Jesus talks about the first and second commandments, love the Lord your God with all your heart, love your neighbor as yourself. These two commandments aren't in competition, right? Even in heaven, the second commandment will be like unto the first, where even in heaven we will love the saints and intercede for the saints on earth, just as we love Christ, right? In heaven, the saints do what Jesus is doing, which is loving God and loving neighbor.
And we see evidence of this, especially in Revelation. Now, good luck to anybody who can tell me precisely what Revelation means, but we see the saints holding the prayers, worshiping God and holding prayers. Who are they praying for? Well, they're praying for those of us who need the prayers. And that point is so important. We're talking about a city of God. We're talking about a community that binds us to people who are not dead, but who have everlasting life. Some will say, why do you pray to dead people? I say, the saints aren't dead. They're the only people we know for sure are alive, as a matter of fact.
Absolutely.
That distinction, sometimes it can be lost. And people say, well, it's not clear, it's very opaque. But Dr. Johnson told us all shallows are clear. All shallow thinking is clear. Now, this has all been too enjoyable. So I want to bring in some terrible news, and you can try to convince me that this is not true. All of the data show us that religiosity is on the decline. Now, on the flip side of that, people like Jordan Peterson or Ben Shapiro or Andrew Klavan or other people who explain about God, either explicitly or implicitly, those guys are more popular than ever. The people who are talking about meaning in life, they're selling a lot of books, and a lot of young people are listening to them. Is this the triumph of spiritual but not religious? Or, on the bright side, is this the darkness before the dawn of a religious revival being led by those people who are talking about God in I think, a mostly explicit way?
You know, I think what it is kind of like the suburban sprawl of spirituality. It's become popular. It's so ubiquitous. Everyone is spiritual but not religious. And it's just beige. And it looks like when you drive through suburban sprawl, it just looks like everyone is living in the suburbs and there's no hope for humanity. When in fact, I think in the midst of that, there will be urban renewal. You know, there'll be a renaissance for farming, that kind of thing. I think the same goes for being religious. There's actually, I think, a deep hunger and a longing, especially in young people today, for religious moorings, for something that's beautiful and for a story that's bigger than themselves that they can participate in. And true religion, not phony religion, right? Not when you're being a big fake show, but true religion rooted in history and in revelation, that goes deep. And people are longing for those old liturgies and traditions that are actually perennial.
That's so true. I will say, especially speaking of the liturgy, all of the churches I find that have this watered down liturgy, and they're all the acoustic guitars or whatever, those are emptying out. The pews are emptying out. And you see more Latin masses and more traditional masses, even masses in English, but they have some chanting. Those are cropping up all over the place, and the houses are packed. So I do see, I certainly see a sign for hope there. What I must tell you, I read a ton of books to prepare for the show. I especially loved An Immovable Feast, so everybody should go out and read it. It's a really good book. I'll put the link on my Twitter and Facebook as well. Tyler, thank you so much for being here. Tyler Blanski, An Immovable Feast, How I Gave Up Spirituality for a Life of Religious Abundance. Probably not going to make it to the Oprah Book Club anytime soon, but you can get it here.
No.
Tyler, thanks for being here.
Michael, thank you. Thank you so much. It was such a joy.
All right, speaking of the spiritual but not religious, a Catholic university has now opened a sex-segregated prayer space to accommodate Muslim students. It's a true story. We have a little bit of time to get into this. I can't let this story go without mentioning it. St. Ambrose University in Davenport has now opened up a prayer space yesterday that designates separate areas for male and female worshipers. Okay, this prompts a few questions, I'm sure. It prompts a litany of questions. To begin, why does a Catholic university have a Muslim prayer space? I don't think Islam is a version of Catholicism or a denomination of Catholicism. This is a serious question. Now you might say, well, it's a university. Why can't they have one? Right, it's a university. It's a Catholic university. There are plenty of secular universities in America. Nobody is forcing Muslim people to go to Catholic universities. Nobody is forcing atheists to go to Catholic universities. Virtually every university in America is secular these days. Most of the top universities, most of the big brand name universities. Why can't the Catholic university be Catholic? Well, you say, what's the big deal? Oh, what's the big deal? If they want a prayer space, that's fine. If they want to keep the men and women apart when they're praying, who cares? Why can't they do that at a Catholic university? Because it's anti-Catholic, because it's anti-Christian. We know that Christianity is a religion. Christ is a person wherein there is neither Jew nor Greek, nor slave nor free, nor male nor female, but all are one in Christ Jesus. What Islam says is, no, well, let's not go that far. Split those two biological sects apart. So, what is the Catholic teaching on Islam? That's another question to ask. Oh, why can't they have a prayer space? Because Catholicism rejects Islam. Islam began actually as a Christian heresy, and it developed into its own separate religion. But there are major differences here. Not just that in one, there is neither male nor female, but all are one in Christ, and in the other, men and women have to be kept apart to worship, but also Islam denies the cross of Christ. And St. Paul writes, there are many walking now, and I tell you even weeping, who deny the cross of Christ. The Quran states, they crucified him not. They crucified him not. That's a major difference. What the Catholic University is teaching here is what we were just talking about with Tyler, spiritual but not religious. Be spiritual but not religious. Now, this is not to say, by the way, that we should go out of our way to offend people or to insult people who have different religious views, but certainly we should not compromise our own faith to appease those people. It doesn't make any sense. It's ridiculous. That's why this is a news story. It is absurd that a Catholic university has sex-segregated prayer centers for a religion that denies the cross of Christ. That we know that that's ridiculous. That's the reason people are reporting on it. When you water yourself down, this is the lesson that is beyond just a religious discussion or whatever. This is true broadly. When you water yourself down, when you water your mission down, you do not become better or bigger. You become nothing. That's what happens. When you try to broaden out to encompass everything, you don't become broad and big and all-encompassing. You become nothing. There's a story now, the Boy Scouts have become the Girl Scouts because the Boy Scouts are allowing girls in. They've actually changed their name. The program is now called Scouts. Scouts BSA. They took the boy away. Well, what happened? The Mormon Church has ended its century-long relationship with the Boy Scouts. The Mormon Church has been a huge supporter of the Boy Scouts for 100 years. Mormons represent almost 20% of every person in the Boy Scouts organization. 18.5% of the 2.3 million people involved in Boy Scouts. Now they're gone. Now it's over. They're out of there. This is the same thing that happened to churches. When the Catholic Church watered down its liturgy, watered down its teaching, the pews emptied. They didn't water down doctrine, but they watered down the practice of it and the liturgy. The pews emptied. Same thing happened with all of the mainline Protestant churches. Do those still exist anymore? Are there still mainline Protestant churches? I think they're ghost towns. You just see tumbleweed going through them on Sundays. The same thing happens to politicians. When politicians try to be everything to everybody, they lose their base. They lose the people who supported them in the first place. Just look at John McCain or Jeb Bush or John Lindsay. These liberal Republicans who want to appease everybody, they end up like low-energy Jeb. You've got to stand for something. You have to stand for something or you will fall for anything. We've got a lot of news to get to before we get to it. I'm sorry. I've got to say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube. If you are on dailywire.com, thank you very much. You help us keep the lights on. You keep Covfefe in my cup. And by the way, I need this cup. The last few days, man, I've almost drowned on several occasions. If you're not there, please go to dailywire.com. You will get me. You'll get the Andrew Klavan Show. You get the Ben Shapiro Show. Do you hear it? Do you hear that right now? I can hear it. It's like birds chirping, bells chiming. It's because it's almost time for the next episode of The Conversation, featuring me, little old me, Michael Knowles. On Tuesday, May 15th at 5:30 Eastern, 2:30 Pacific, I will be taking all of your questions and easing your anxiety by answering all of your questions live on air. Every query that has burned in your hearts will be resolved. Best of all, it's an extra hour-long dose of little old me, which, what more could you ask for? I almost certainly will not be wearing pants. That just has sort of become the rule for The Conversation. Alicia Krause will be there too. You like her. That'll be nice. This month's episode will stream live on Daily Wire's YouTube and Facebook pages. It will be free for everyone to watch. Only subscribers can ask questions. To ask questions, as a subscriber, log into the website, dailywire.com. That should be your homepage anyway. Head over to the Conversation page. Watch the live stream. After that, just start typing in the Daily Wire chat box, and I will answer questions as they come in for an entire hour. Once again, get those questions answered by little old me, Tuesday, May 15th, 5:30 Eastern, 2:30 Pacific. Join the conversation. Again, none of that matters. All that matters is this. The John Kerry vintage, the Obama vintage, the Hillary's aides vintage. They're all tweeting. They're all so sad. They're also... Go to dailywire.com. We'll be right back.